Mixed response from Republicans in the wake of the Rand Paul truth-telling, with most all but sticking their fingers in their ears, as Richard suggested, and saying, la, 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 la. Sister Sarah, where is she now, pray tell? Wednesday night before the Maddow interview, the half-governor of Alaska having said of Dr. Paul, quote, that libertarian streak of his, that is what we need to balance out the leftist liberal overreach of government that's in power right now. Meanwhile, the man Dr. Paul hopes to replace in the Senate, pitcher turned something other than that, Senator Jim Bunning, saying Thursday that Paul's views should be the views of the GOP. The Republican leadership apparently wishing, however, that Dr. Paul would just shut up. John Kyle of Arizona, the number 2 Republican in the Senate, telling the New York Times something rather telling. Quote, I hope he can separate the theoretical and the interesting and the hypothetical questions that college students debate until 2 a.m. from the actual votes we have to cast based on real legislation here. On that note, let's turn now to David Corn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones magazine, as well as a columnist for politicsdaily.com. David, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
We're hearing a little bit of this emperor has no clothes thing going on here with Rand Paul. I mean, might he merely be expressing views that many small government conservatives hold, but usually keep to themselves in order to, you know, get elected without anybody knowing they're this far off the whack-off sort of path there?
Well, I think what he needs is a blowout preventer, one that works. My theory here is that Rand Paul, like a lot of us, learned a lot from our parents, whether we wanted to or not. And if you look at his dad, Ron Paul, what characterizes him, what makes him almost charming, is that he says what he thinks. Now, that works when you come from a conservative, quirky, libertarian district in Texas, and it got him a national following, but not too many votes in the Republican primaries last time around. So Rand Paul has gotten to where he is as a Senate primary winner by kind of acting the way his dad does. But that's not going to work in Kentucky. It's not going to work on the national stage. So he is telling us what he thinks, but now, as Richard noted, he's turning into the regular old politician and trying to dodge the consequences of his own beliefs.
Are you confident it's not going to work in Kentucky? Because Howard Fineman, who worked there, said that unfortunately, due to the low levels of minority interest in that state, this might be exactly what a lot of Kentuckians want to hear.
Well, I think he has a fighting chance. I mean, we have 5 more months, and maybe he'll stay away from the microphones for all that time. But Jack Conway, who won the Democratic primary, is a very strong candidate. You know, Republicans have a leg up in Kentucky, but the Democrats have won that seat in the past, and they have, I think they have a good chance if Rand Paul continues to behave anyway like he has the past 4 days.
Tomorrow, the Republicans are to gather in Kentucky for an actual, essentially, group hug, less than a literal or a figurative one, to rally around Rand Paul at a unity breakfast in Lexington, Kentucky. I mean, what is that going to look like? Or is Dr. Paul going to sleep through it because of this exhaustion, and he's already done enough and he's tired?
Talk about shotgun weddings. I hope there's a lot of moonshine to go around. I mean, this, you know, at the beginning of the week, I thought it was a bad week for Mitch McConnell. But now I think he's one of the smartest guys on the Republican Party side. He saw what would happen with Rand Paul, and he did his best to try to keep him from getting the Senate nomination. And now, as we've seen in the last 24 hours, he's not rushing to embrace this guy. I mean, this is like hugging a live grenade. No one's going to know when Rand Paul is going to explode, and I don't think they want to get too close to him. All you have to do is go and look at some of the conspiracy talk shows he's been on, and how he kind of is very sympathetic to this conspiracy notion of the New World Order and international cabals, you know, taking over the Republican and Democratic Party. So there's a lot, you know, he's radioactive, he's red hot, so I think it's going to be very difficult for Republicans, even Sister Sarah, to get too close to him in the next couple of days, or next few weeks.
The real threat is from the American Ophthalmological Association. They're going to take
what are they going to do?
You know this. Last thing, he's complained that he's being trashed up and down by Democratic talking points. But what John Kyle said was that it was just kind of funny, oh, that's sort of hope he can separate the theoretical and the interesting and the hypothetical questions that college students debate until 2 a.m. from the actual votes we have to cast based on real legislation here. Is that the loudest shot across the bow that a prominent Republican can take right now, or is it a warning to him, or what is it?
Oh, it's pretty darn condescending.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Listen, Mr. Paul, we do real business here. We don't want any of your silly libertarian fantasies. Go rent The Matrix if that's what you're interested in. So, I mean, but it is a shot against a shot across the bow for him. And I think Republicans are going to stand back and wait and see, you know, how he'll do this weekend by not going on Meet the Press and whether he can get any momentum back. But every chance he's had this week to impress people, he's done the opposite. And I think the BP remark is, you know, how can he get through the campaign without further explaining that? And I think, unfortunately, you know, you pegged it earlier. This is what he believes. It's not; these aren't gaffes. These aren't slips of the tongue. This is what he truly believes. And do Kentuckians want to vote for someone who, when there's an ecological disaster, he goes, "Whoops, let's not blame the company."
Yes, and in essence, he endorsed an oil spill. David Corn of Mother Jones. Great, thanks. Have a good weekend.
You too, Keith.